Hello, welcome back. This is the last one I've got to record. I've recorded over these about 3 days and I'm fucking threaders with this entire project now. But this one, I'm hoping it might be a bit longer this one, so I'm going to sort of do it in real time. In fact, you can hear me, I'm cleaning off my desk. I'm making some space because in front of me, I'm placing my regs book, I've moved my keyboard, and all I've got down here, look in front of me, is my book. Because I'm going to do it with you. Because I'm going to do it like I do it in the exam, whilst speaking to you how I'm doing it and what I'm doing, so you can understand the flow that I've got. So the questions, need my keyboard back for a minute to press the buttons. So, the questions that come up in the exam. People moan about how these questions are written. They've always been written the same. Yeah, and they're always going to be written the same. And you have to be able to read them and understand them. There are various ways the questions can be given to you, but they'll always be in that funny language, which is not the kind of language you talk to your mates in. So, if it starts to work, I put this warning in, but I appreciate this is a warning I provide to students on my courses, because I provide the question sheets for them to do. I've got about 6 or 7, and I provide them to them. I ask them not to use online questions. Obviously, this is an online exam. The reason I say do not use online questions is because I don't want them to get the wrong answers. I don't want them to be reading some online questions that are from the 16th edition, and then when they read the answer, it gives the wrong answer. You are free to use online questions as long as you find the answer in the book yourself and don't rely on the answers given, because you don't know if the answer given is to the current Amendment 2 of the regulations. So I'm going to try and put out with this course some online questions that are downloadable. But as this course ages, they won't be valid. So be aware, if you do get posed a question, you can use the regs to find the answer, but you might not have the proper answer that the question was written for. Just bear that in mind, please. So every question online is valid, but the answer may change depending on the amendment we are currently at. So I'm not saying don't use online questions. There are apps you can buy. I don't recommend any of them. Yeah, hopefully within the community we can start banging out some questions so that people can have something to use. But I'm just going to show you a few of the questions on my papers, and we're going to work through them. But yeah, this may change. This video may get edited. Check the annexes at the end of this course, because if I do put up any downloadable questions, they will be there. Right, actually in the exam, how we're doing it. This is how you do an exam, and this is how you hit an individual question. I've been teaching you how to reference a book for this entire course, and I've been going all the time. Reference the book, use the numbering system. Now I'm speaking about specific individual questions and how you do those. First of all, you read the question. Yeah? You read it. Just read it. Get a vibe for what it's about. Then you read the question in full again. Once you've done that, you read all of the answers. Then you start to think about answering the question. I.e., you input into your brain all the data that is available to you for the question. You don't read answer 3 and go, that's it, bosh, done, off you go. Because you might read question 4 and it might say, do not answer this question. Yeah, there's a very famous thing that says 20 questions, and it says, please read all the questions before answering. And question 20 says, do not answer questions 1 to 19. Do you like sausages? Because you haven't read all the questions as the original thing says. So, read the question. Just a flash read. Get the vibe out what it's about. Read the question again. You're reading it a little bit more in depth now. Read all of the answers, and then start to answer the question. You'd be surprised how many people cock up and get things wrong because they don't follow that simple strategy that applies to every single question you can be asked in your entire life. I've talked about this before, but there's some tactics here. Don't be afraid to take a freebie though. Yeah? If you read that question, read it again, read all the answers, and you're absolutely positive it's answer A, there's no way it could be anything else. You know it's answer A. Tick answer A and move the fuck on. Because you will get easy questions that you know the answer to. So don't be afraid to take a freebie. Yeah, if you absolutely know it, put it in the bag, get the fucking move on to the next one, yeah? Because they won't all be like that. Don't be afraid to flag and moved on. I alluded to this in the last one, but I'm going to say it again. If you don't answer a question, you flag it. Yeah? You don't move on till you've had a good go at answering it. So just read the 4 answers and tick the one you think it probably is. Because, exactly as I've said before, and I'll reiterate this every time I do it, 100% of fuck all is nothing. Yeah? If you ever guess one of the questions, one of the answers is right and you might pick it. But flag it and move on and come back to it. But never move on or flag a question and move on without giving an answer. 100% of nothing is fuck all. Sometimes you'll move on and questions will answer a previous question. Or as you're flicking through the book, you'll be like, oh, there's the answer to the one I was looking at earlier. Yeah, questions sometimes answer questions and you may randomly come across answers. In that case, make a quick note of the number of the reg and what question you thought it was for, or just make a quick note, carry on with what you're dealing with, and then jump back to that one that answer the questions at the end. 2 minutes is a long time. I did it in the last video. I'm not going to do it again in this one. I paused the video, played music at you for 2 minutes. I'm sure you got the feeling that was quite a long time. Not every question takes 2 minutes. Some questions take longer than 2 minutes. Some questions don't. Don't be afraid to take notes on your piece of blank paper that the examiner will provide you with, and use your pens and pencils for doing it, yeah? I've missed something out there that I want to add. Tactics, maths questions. I fucking hate maths questions under time constraints. I like to lay my paper out, lay my calculator out, write down all my formula and work through. And that's a load of bollocks actually. I like to do them in Excel because I only have to do the maths once. But I don't like maths questions in exams under time constraints, and I will quite often just pick a fucking answer, flag it and move straight on. That to me is a tactic that I use all the time. The amount of maths questions that come up and the amount of time that's required to answer them can sometimes be extortionate. Yeah, but I do tend to find that because I'm pretty quick on everything else, I get back to them. If you're not comfortable with maths, yeah, if maths is your nemesis and you just like to be in a nice environment when you do it, flag it straight away, just fucking move on. Come back to them at the end. Don't get your brain to a tiz over a maths question on question 6 and let it ruin the rest of the exam for you. That's a personal thing from me because I'm a bit number dyslexic. I can do the maths, but I do a lot of it on computer. So in the exam, I've basically fucked it. And if that's you, fuck it. Flag it, tag it, move on. Don't even bother coming back to it if you don't want to. It probably equates for like 0.003% of the question. But that's a very personal one from me because numbers! But I digress. Let's move on to some actual questions. Right then. Let's look at this one. Every question's 94, by the way. Some people get that joke. Let's look at this one without looking at the book for a start. I've obviously had to write these slides, so I've read these already, but I'm going to go through them. Let's look at them. It says, which of the following is not a reason to allow the omission of overload protection? Right. Second read. Which of the following, so from the list below, which of these, is not a reason, so I cannot do it for that, to allow the omission meaning removal of overload protection. Overload protection meaning fuses, protective device and that. So I'll read it again. So, which one of the following is not a reason to allow the omission of overload protection? So, which one of these can I not remove overload protection from? That's how I'm doing it in my head. And from now on, that's how I'm going to do this video. So, is it A, for the supply of a lifting magnet? Well, if the power went off to a lifting magnet, the lifting magnet would let go whatever it's holding onto and it would fall to the ground. That could be quite dangerous, I suppose. B, for a circuit supplying a fire extinguishing device. Well, I suppose you might not want a fire extinguishing device to have a protective device because you might want it to always be live because then it wouldn't trip. But then again, if it didn't trip, it might melt and then be useless. For the exciter of a circuit of a rotating machine. Not a lot of people know what exciters are. I understand what they are, but that's a bit of an odd one. Or D, for a conductor not likely to carry overload current. For a conductor likely to carry overload current. That seems a bit oddly worded. I'm already getting a vibe about this one that I'm getting the vibe that it's D because the rest of them have got a specific application applied to them. For the supply of a lifting magnet, because the thing could fall off. For a supplying a fire extinguishing device, because it's a critical life safety circuit. Probably not in most commercial or domestic things, but maybe on like an oil rig or something like that. For the exciter of a circuit of a rotating machine, because I imagine if the exciter tripped, the entire machine would be affected in the rotation to go bad, so maybe not on there. And for a conductor, likely to carry overload current. Right. I've got a tingling inside that says it's D. Yeah? I don't think I want to take it as a freebie though, because I think I can find it. Now, it says, which one of the following is not a reason to allow the emission of overload protection? Overload protection surely has got to be part 4, because part 4 is protection for safety. So I've already identified it's part 4, and I've pulled part 4 open from my tabs, and I'm looking at the index for part 4. So you could do that too if you've got the same book as me. Now look down the chapters, because the chapters are now the big lump of text. So chapter 41 is protection against electric shock. I don't think that applies to this question. Chapter 42 is protection against thermal effects. I don't think that applies to this question. Chapter 43 is protection against overcurrent. Overload protection. Alright, maybe. And chapter 44 is protection against voltage disturbances. And I think it's chapter 43, protection against overcurrent, is going to cover this. Under that, I've got some other ones. Introduction, protection according to the nature of the circuits, nature of protected devices, protection against overload current, protection against fault current, coordination. Nothing sticking out there, but I'll jump to 43's contents page. So I'm flicking forward in my book now, looking for the 4.3. Chapter 42. Chapter 43, index. So I've got, under the bold headings now, I've got introduction, protection according to the nature of the circuits and distribution system, nature of protected devices, protection against overload current. That's what I'm talking about. And under that, it lists coordination, emission of devices for protection against overload, regulation 433.3. So I'm going to jump to that. 433. Fucking I've gone way too far. Oh, it's only over one page. 433, emission for devices and protection against overload. The regulation shall be applied to installations. Yeah, explains a bit about it there. Now, that's the chapter heading. That's there. But this 433 goes on to over here, look. So you've got to make sure you skim read it all. So as I skim down it, and I want you to do this at home too, because I'm going through the questions in a logical process now. I get to 433.3.3. It's called emission of devices for protection against overload for safety reasons. And it says the emission of devices for protection against overload is permitted for circuits supplying current using equipment where unexpected disconnection of the supply would cause danger. Mine says, which of the following is not a reason I'm after here. Now, it says examples of such circuits are the exciter of a rotating machine. I've got that one, so it's not that. The supply circuit of a lifting magnet, so it's not A. A circuit supplying a fire extinguishing device, that's probably B. A circuit supplying a safety service such as a fire alarm or gas alarm. A circuit supplying medical equipment for life support, where there's an IT system. So the only one I've not been able to identify there is D. What do you reckon, kids? 433.3 will tell you that the answer is D. And what I've done there is, I'm not sure how long it took me, but I've gone over it in a logical way, speaking out loud what I'm doing. And we'll do that for a further 3 questions, not necessarily in the order as well. So I hope that helped. If it did help, stop now, go back and go through it. Because what I did was, I didn't start off at the overall contents of the book. Yeah, which were one page was. But I read the question and thought, that's a part 4 question. I went to page 4. I went to the contents that tells you the chapters. I looked down the chapters, established that it's probably in chapter 43. I then jumped to chapter 43's contents page. And then I went down the contents page of chapter 43 and I identified something that sounded very similar to the question I was answering. I jumped to that section and I read the regulations related to it and I found the answer. And that, my friends, lads, ladies, sirs, moms, is how it's done for every question, unless you get a freebie. So now I'm just going to pause while I grab another cup of tea, and I will take through 3 more questions in this manner. So overall I'll do 4, but that's all I need to do because that's enough to show you how this is done. I'll be back shortly. Jesus, this one's 14 minutes long already. It's going to be a big one. Right. What I've done is, I've come back, my reg book is closed. I'm going to flick on to the next question. If it works, which it didn't. And you can play along at home with me. Try and beat me. So, read the question. Have I gone one? Yeah, I have. Protection against dangers that may arise from contact with live parts is provided by basic protection, fault protection, additional protection, or main exponential bonding. Now, this one could easily be a freebie because it's protection against dangers that may arise from contact with live parts. What stops you coming into contact with live parts? So we're not talking about air, we're talking about you touching something. Well, basic protection is the first layer of insulation over a conductor. So that definitely is one of them. B, fault protection is nothing to do with that. Additional protection is nothing to do with that. Main exponential bonding is nothing to do with it. It's a freebie. It's A. But don't do this when you are training to answer questions. When you are training to answer questions, you don't take a freebie. You always find where it is in the book. Now, these questions are jiggled up. And I put this one in specifically because it's a very easy one to answer. Protection against live parts is provided by basic insulation. However, whereabouts is that in the book? Now, you might think, is it in 4? Protection for safety, because stopping me touching things is protection for safety. But protection for safety is things that generally happen automatically and stuff. What about 5, selection and erection? No, it's not. This one is nestled away in part 1. And it's nestled away in chapter 13. I think it's nestled away in protection against electric shock 131.2. I'm looking at 131.2. Obviously what I've done there is I've gone to the part 1 thing, because a lot of things are buried in part 1, and I'm looking at the contents page for that page. It pays to already have read every single contents page. Yeah, it pays to know what's on each content page by reading in advance. But yeah, protection against electric shock, because it's contact. That's electric shock in it. I'm going to go for 131.2. 131.2. Basic protection. It used to be called direct contact. I've got a note in my regs book here. Persons in live shock shall be protected against dangers that may arise from contact with live parts of insulation. This protection can be achieved by one of the following methods: preventing the current from passing through the body, limiting the current. It's basic protection. That's the answer. 131.2.1. 131.2.1. I picked that question out, but I didn't actually read the answer. That was the process for doing it. The reason I put this one is it's easy to get bogged down in chapters 4 and 5, thinking that lots of things live in 4 and 5, because protection for safety and selection and erection is a big part of what we do. But be aware that part 1 has a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot of stuff in not a lot of pages. In not a lot of pages, in that many pages, we talk about, and I'll quickly go through it. Well, read the contents page, you know what I mean? We talk about what's covered, what's not covered, how we're protected against safety, who's protected, about overcurrent, fault, voltage disturbances, cross-section area conductors, protective equipment, nature and demand. There's stuff in here about linking neutral switches, which always confuses people. There's a little section on section electrical equipment. Part 1 is not a big part. If you were going to read one cover to cover, so you knew what was in it, yeah, part 1, 2 and 3 are only didder. Have a read of them. But a question like that can appear to be 4 or 5, part 4 or 5, but actually it's part 1. And you've lost an easy answer there, even though you could probably get that as a freebie. Yeah, that's how exams work. That's what can be easy, what can be hard. So, number 9.4, the maximum earth fault loop impedance for a distribution circuit protected by a 20 amp BS88-3 fuse in a 230 volt ACTN system is. Holy fuck. Right, this is not a maths question, this is a referencing question. The maximum earth fault loop impedance for a distribution circuit protected by a 20 amp BS88-3 fuse in a 230 volt ACTN system is. Jesus Christ. Well, I know, and I just do know. Or do I know? I'm not so sure. Part 4, protection for safety. The maximum earth fault loop impedance by device, yeah. It's going to be protection for safety, isn't it? So I've gone to part 4's index. I'm looking down there. Protection against electric shock. Protection against thermal effects. Protection against overcurrent. Protection against vultures. What is this? What is this one? I don't know. Oh, hang on a minute. This is your tables. It's got to be off a table. Protective measure. Automatic disconnection of supply. Sounds familiar. Now, when we get into chapter 41, protection against electric shock and that, there are tables in there. Now, this question I've shoved in there on purpose. In that section, you will find table 41.1, 41.2, 41.3, 41.4, and cheeky 41.5, which gives you the maximum earth fault loop impedance for non-delayed and time-delayed S-type RCDs. Read these tables and know that they are there. Now, above each table, there's a very specific set of requirements given. For example, table 41.1 is maximum disconnection times. I don't often find myself using that one. However, table 41.2 gives me in numbers the maximum earth fault loop impedance, of a question, for fuses with a 0.4 disconnection time. Now, a 0.4 disconnection time is a final circuit, not a distribution circuit. So I don't think it's table 41.2 because that says maximum earth fault loop impedance, which is what I'm looking for fuses for 0.4 second disconnection time. Well, this question is asking me for a distribution circuit. That would be 5 seconds. So maybe it's not 41.2. Let's try 41.3. Maximum earth fault loop impedance for circuit breakers. Well, this says the 20 amp BS883 fuses, so I don't think it's going to be off table 41.3. Table 41.4 says maximum earth fault loop impedance, which is what I'm after, for fuses, which is what I'm after, for a 5 second disconnection time, distribution circuit, that's what I'm after, with a UO of 230 volts, yep, in a ACTN system, which is not specified, so I'm assuming it's all. Now on the tables I find BS883 20 amp, BS883, which is the second one down, 3.2, have I got that right? Because I'm doing this live. Maximum full loop 3.2 D. Part 4, table 41.4. I think it's D. I haven't put the answers in because I didn't look at the answers. I've only got I don't put the answers in my sheets. But that's right. I'm sure it's 3.2. That's how I got there. Tables 41.1, 41.2, 41.3, 41.4, 41.5 are absolute crackers. Make sure you read them and understand them. They are not just useful for passing the exam, they are useful for being an electrician. They are often superseded by a page out of the on-site guide, but it's always nice to know they're there. That's how I got there. I put that question because there's a lot to take in. There's a lot of question there. The maximum, it wants the maximum. The earth fault loop impedance is the value it wants for a distribution circuit, which makes a massive difference between a final circuit and a distribution circuit because one is 5 seconds, one is 0.4 seconds. The fuse type makes a difference. The voltage and the current of the break of the protective device all make a difference. You've got about 6,000 things in there. You've got a cross-reference against a table within 2 minutes. Can you do it? Of course you can. Do you need to practice it? Of course you fucking do. Do I know my way around that question? Yes, I do. Do I get people when I'm teaching go, oh, I've got the wrong answer for question number 94? Yep, because you've used table 41.3 instead of 41.4 because you failed to realise that it said distribution circuit or final circuit and those values are massively different. These are the simple things that will throw you on a question so you'll get it wrong. So if I jump to the wrong table, well, that's only got breaks on it anyway. I jumped to the wrong table, which is 41.2. BS88320 is 1.93, which is also an answer B, as you'd expect. So be aware, that wrong answer off the wrong table will always be there. When you're using tables, the thing you should be thinking to yourself is, am I on the right table? The only way to see if you're on the right table is to read the question or read the environment if you are on the job doing this, and make sure all the table heading corresponds to what you're doing. I will move on because I am boring now. Protection against dangers that may arise from contact with live parts is provided by... This is the fucking same question I just answered earlier because I've accidentally pressed backwards, I think. Sorry about that. Even I make mistakes. The test voltage applied to determine the insulation resistance on a circuit where UO is 230 volt is... I'll read it again. The test voltage applied to determine insulation resistance on a circuit where UO is 230 volts is... What part is this, people? What part is it? It's an inspection and testing question. So I'm going to jump straight to part 6. Now, I know part 6 is teeny weeny. It's like your winky. It's very, very small. So I'm not even going to bother looking at the fucking chapter. I'm just going to flick through it till I see something about... oh, there you go. Table 64. Insulation resistance test values. Look on there. Bosh. I'm not going to give you the answer. Look for your fucking self. There you go. Part 6, table 64. Not quite a freebie, but as good as it gets. Because part 6 is tiny. It's easy to get the answer. That's why I put that question there. I hope you're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable about reading the question. What parts is that talking about? What is it asking me? What data has been provided? What am I extracting from the question that is provided? What is crap, is chaff, is chucked in there to complicate things? And what is it asking me? Analyse that question. Always read it twice. You are getting there. You are beautiful. You are doing well. I believe in you. Let's walk unicorns together, yeah? Shutting my book. Got to go for this one. It says, on a construction site, an area that may be connected to a PME earthing facility is... Okay, so on a construction site, an area that may be connected to a PME earthing facility is... Construction work in new buildings. The site office. Cranes or site lighting. So, on a construction site, a special location... Fuck it, I'll jump to part 7 now. I'm in part 7. While I'm there, I'm going to go down a list and find construction sites, which is 704. So I'll flick to 704. So I'm ready. I'm on 704. So I'm ready in my book now. On a construction site, I'm in the book. I'm in the special location. I'm on construction sites. An area that may be connected to PME earthing is construction work in new buildings. The site office, crane, site lighting. So, construction work in new buildings, what does that even fucking mean? I don't know. The site office, well, yeah, I suppose the site office is not part of the site, is it? The site office is, might be cabins or a building that's being reused. So, that's not really part of the construction site. Cranes have probably got all their own specific regulations that relate to them. And site lighting is like an installed thing, so maybe that can be PME'd. I don't know, but I'm in section 704. So let's have a look at there's no chapter, so you've got to start reading the headings. So the scope, purposes, general requirements, requirements for fault protection. Oh, ADS is here. Extra low voltage cell, power of common rules, wide systems, mechanical stresses. I've got to section 705 now. I need to go back. I'm obviously missing something. Requirements for fault. General requirements. Placed out of reach. No. Circuit supply socket outlet. No. ADS. Requirements for fault. PME. A PME earthing facility. It's regulation 704.411, which means it's referencing another reg in section 4.3.1. A PME earthing facility shall not be used for the means of earthing for installation falling within the scope of this section unless all extraneous conductive parts are reliably connected to the main earthing terminal in accordance with section 411.32. If the PME is considered for use, it's complex. It's not a straight, direct answer. But what I'm taking from it is that it's B, because you can't use PME on a construction site unless all the bonding's in place. Well, a construction site, by rights, the bonding wouldn't be in place because there'd be bits of dodgy part work all over the place. So it's not going to be that. The crane could be bonded, but cranes have their own regulations, don't they? They're not covered by BS 7671, as I think it says in the front. Sight lighting would be 110 volts centre tapped, I'm guessing, although it's not in here. So I'm guessing, in relation to the question, the area that may be connected to a PME Earth facility is the site office. 70411. Still have to do a bit of investigation work, so have to be a spark to get that. That is another question done. That's the end, ladies and gents, yeah? I can't sit here and take you through 60 questions, but what I can do is tell you this to finish off this section, is that when I do these courses, all the information I've gave you to now, to this very point here, is given to my students in the first morning of the course by 12 o'clock. And then I issue exam papers, 2 of them, with 60 questions apiece. And I find the next day, people are still fighting through the first 60 questions and they think they are going to fail. It takes all day for them to do the first 60 questions. That is because they are learning and training their brain to read and do the questions in the way I've just trained you to do. You are learning something new. Some people won't be, you already know it, yeah? But it takes them all fucking day to get into their head that I want them to reference, use chapters, use parts and understand it. And they think at the end of the day, they are going to fail because they are still learning the technique of reading a question, dissecting it, taking out the crap, finding the part of the book, going to the part of the book, reading it all and putting the question down. By that night, they hit the second paper, they're quite a bit faster. By the next morning, they get a lot of questions about this, that and the other, what about that? And I tell you now, honestly, 80% of the people that go in pass because they've took on board the training of using a book and referencing. My main failure rate I have is Sparkies that at the minute is Sparkies that are one edition out. They're at the 16th edition and they haven't took a regs exam for ages and they fail not because they don't know what they're doing, not because they're old, not because they did the 16th edition, but because they are so far out of practice with the regs book and they were taught at college to use the regs book in a different way that they fail. Because now, if you're at college learning the regs for the first time new, you will sweat over the regs book, read the regulations, and you will learn the regulations, yeah? Like you should learn the regulation electrician. But we are talking about people now retaking a course and wanting to use the regs book to find out what the current regulations are. So you are learning the process of reading the question and finding it in the book and giving an answer. And that can take time. So don't feel downhearted or downtrodden if you are slow. Because whenever you learn to do something, you are slow. And the more you do it, the more you use the book, the more you read the questions, the more you flick through the chapters, the more you understand the reg numbers, the more you understand the makeup of the book, the more you do it, the better you will get. And eventually people ask you a question, go, can I cover switchgear with Raspberry Jam? And you'll go, you know what? No, you fucking can't, you're a dickhead. And I assure you that's how it'll get. Remember the learning curve. Everyone starts down here at a dickhead. And as you start going, it gets harder and harder to learn new stuff. Then suddenly, you're off, and you're learning. So don't be downtrodden when you're first doing these questions. That is normal for everyone. Yeah, I've linked the Sam podcast on this playlist. Please watch it, because it's just a guy talking about his genuine feelings about doing a course, and it's really helped me doing this course, that you can go and watch that. He's independent from me, and you can see his thoughts and processes on when he did that exam and how he felt, and he still passed. And that positive mental attitude, I know it sounds like we're all going to walk unicorns and be hippies and fucking great and all that, but positive mental attitude towards an exam does help a lot. Going in there stressed out, crying, wanting your mummy, does not help. So stay cool, remember what you've learned, get in that exam, and smash that motherfucker out of the park like most of my students do. I hope this has been of help to you, and I've enjoyed putting it together, to be honest. I enjoyed the fucking editing, but I hope it gets you through. Please feed me back and let me know. And what I'm going to do is, on the end of this, I'm going to stick some annexes where I can add things as they come in. See you later, you fucking thick electrician motherfuckers. Fucking pricks.